In the morning, he found a paperback copy of 2 Years Before the Mast by his bed, and a Mills address written on the bookmark. He left very early, according to the clerk. Brent looked as though he were leaving as well, tramping out the front door with his pack on his back after eating breakfast. Feeling a fraud, he walked 3 blocks, turned to the right, walked 4 more, and came to the park he glimpsed the day before. Here he could work on his whirligig, undetected by the other guests. He claimed a picnic table, laid out his tools like a surgeon, and flipped through his book. He made up his mind to vault ahead from the simplest style he built in Washington and decided on the spouting whale, operated by a propeller on rods. The book's previous owner had been there before him, leaving penciled annotations like footprints. The sight of them cheered Brent. He sketched the whale on wood, erased, revised, and realized Leah wasn't in it. He considered giving the whale her face, then painting her in its belly as Jonah, then looked through the book, saw a design with a mermaid, and decided to change its hair to black and to impose it on top of the spout. He didn't know what had given him the nerve to try such an ambitious project. The sunny morning made anything seem possible. By dinner time, not even close to half finished, he felt like a gasping marathon runner, wondering why he'd made himself do it. The whirligig ended up taking 3 days spent in trying to balance the propelling blades, bending rods, threading rods, wasting wood, starting over, walking 1.5 miles to the hardware store for supplies and advice. He'd learned the hard way to paint in the morning so that he'd have surfaces would be dry by the time he packed up at the end of the day. He swore at the book, then at himself for making foolish mistakes. It was the harmonica that saved him. Playing it during breaks and at night, improvising at blowing through a single hole, progressing from hot cross buns to Tom Doodley to Twinkle Twinkle Little Star, he added drop by drop to its store of perseverance, which supplied both tasks. Despite the difficulties, the whirligig was absorbing, blocking everything else from view, the characters from his first life, allies, enemies, potential girlfriends, who'd once loomed like giants, were now barely visible, distant figures disappearing over the horizon. He still noticed the cars he'd lustered after and heard snatches of songs linked to that era. His reaction felt distant and ghostly. He had no desire to revive that life. It had all been crumpled in the crash. He no longer gave any thought to his clothes. He was an outcast, part of no group, and no longer had anyone to impress. Only when the wind blew did he feel watched by Leah, looking down on his work. It was late afternoon when he finished. After testing it dozens of times, he looked down at his book instructions, took out a pencil, and wrote in the margin, "Added mermaid from page 87 on spout," followed by the date and his name. He felt he was conversing with the book's former owner. He now faced problems of where to set it up. He didn't think it would last long in a public park in the big city. Then he remembered seeing a set of wind chimes in the hostel's porch. He'd made his way back and asked the clerk if he could offer it as a gift and thanked him for being in. "Sure. Bring a bit more life to front," he said, "but no need to go buying presents." Brent mounted it and there, trying to see out the different locations and making various minor adjustments. The wind that sprang up each afternoon was blowing, sending the whale's spout up and down, with the mermaid on top like a bronc rider. No guest chanced to be out front. Brent snapped a photo and disappeared. When the subject of its origin came up at dinner, Brent was as silent as the others. Afterwards, though, on the porch, he was not. He claimed one of the rockers, took out the harmonica, and began work on memorizing "My Bonnie Lies Over the Ocean." It had been a snug, briskly back in grammar school, and refrain cheery and rousing. He now saw it for a moment that it was. Leah lay across the ocean, and no boat could cross. He practiced the song over and over, scratching into his brain, and the pattern with holes to draw on, which to blow. He finally got it out, closed the book, faced Leah, and played it through perfectly. Champagne bottles are broken on ship's bows. This felt like the whirligig's christening. A couple sitting on the front lawn clapped. Early the next morning, Brent moved on.